Could Elena have ever imagined that one small candle lit in memory of Florence would become the biggest public humiliation of Elena's life inside Royal Crown restaurant? Elena had not come for just a dinner. Elena had come on the death anniversary of Elena's mother, Florence, only to sit at the same table where Florence once stood in a chef coat, where Florence's hands always smelled of butter, garlic, and fresh herbs, where Florence had once told young Elena, "Elena, respect is never served on a plate. Respect has to be earned." Royal Crown was one of the most famous luxury restaurants in Chicago. Black cars stood outside Royal Crown. Crystal chandeliers glittered inside Royal Crown. Rich guests were eating dinner under soft music and golden lights. Elena stood outside the glass doors and took a deep breath. Elena wore a dark blue dress. The dress was not expensive, but Elena had ironed the dress with care. Elena's body size was not what the world called perfect. Elena had spent years hearing comments from people who thought cruelty was honesty. Sometimes the cruelty came from school hallways. Sometimes the cruelty came from office elevators. Sometimes the cruelty came from clothing stores where saleswomen smiled with fake sympathy. But tonight, Elena had decided Elena would not hide. Elena would walk inside Royal Crown. Elena would light one candle for Florence. Elena would order a proper dinner. Elena deserved one peaceful night. William stood behind the reception desk. William was the manager of Royal Crown. William had a fake smile on his face, but calculation in his eyes. William called rich guests sir. William treated simple guests like problems. Elena said in a soft voice, "The reservation is under Florence. Table 12. William checked the system. William's face changed slightly. When William saw Florence's name on the screen, William quickly looked toward Jackson. Jackson was the owner of Royal Crown. Jackson stood near the bar. Jackson wore an expensive suit. Jackson was laughing with rich guests. But the moment Jackson heard Florence's name, Jackson's smile disappeared. Jackson gave William a signal with his eyes. William looked back at Elena and said, "Elena, table 12 is reserved, but table 12 is being held for a private event." Elena took a folded confirmation from Elena's purse. Elena placed the paper in front of William. "Elena booked this table 3 weeks ago. Florence used to be an old chef here. Elena just wants to have dinner in Florence's memory." William looked at the paper. William's jaw tightened. William handed the paper back and said, "The restaurant is full." Elena looked toward the dining room. Table 12 was empty. Table 12 had a white cloth on it. Table 12 had a fresh candle in the center. Elena said quietly, "Table 12 is empty." William was about to answer when laughter came from the entrance. Sophia walked in. Sophia wore a silver dress. Zoe walked beside Sophia. Zoe held a phone in her hand and recorded everything around her. Sophia belonged to Chicago's rich circle. Sophia was the spoiled daughter of David, a silent investor in Royal Crown. Sophia believed money was bigger than character. Zoe was Sophia's best friend. Zoe showed a luxury life on social media. Zoe treated real people's pain like content. Sophia recognized Elena in the first second. Sophia had bullied Elena in college and called Elena the extra chair girl. Sophia had never been Elena's friend. Sophia had always been jealous of Elena's confidence. Because Elena was strong in studies and teachers praised Elena, Sophia always enjoyed watching Elena break. Sophia laughed loudly and said, "Oh my God, Zoe, look who it is, Elena. The same Elena." Inside Royal Crown, Zoe pointed the camera toward Elena. Zoe whispered, but the whisper was loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "This is perfect. Rich restaurant, plus-size drama, sad face, viral content." Elena turned Elena's face away from Zoe's phone. Elena's hand tightened around Elena's purse. Elena said to William, "Please do not let Elena be recorded." William feared Zoe and David's name. Sophia came closer to Elena and looked Elena up and down. Sophia smirked. "Elena, Royal Crown has normal-sized doors. How did Elena even get inside?" Zoe burst out laughing. Two rich women at nearby tables turned their necks. The waiter stopped walking. Elena pressed Elena's lips together. Elena answered directly. "Elena came for dinner. Sophia should enjoy Sophia's dinner." Sophia made a fake, shocked face. "Dinner? Elena and dinner." "Zoe, hide the menu before the kitchen runs out of stock." A small wave of laughter moved through the dining room. Tears filled Elena's eyes, but Elena held the tears back. Elena had decided Elena would not run tonight. Florence's diary was inside Elena's bag. Inside the diary was one old note from Florence. The note mentioned table 12. Elena only wanted to sit at table 12. Jackson was watching everything from a distance. Jackson did not care about Elena's weight. Jackson cared about Florence's name. Florence's name was dangerous for Jackson. Jackson called William to the side. Jackson whispered, "Florence's name should not come back here. If Elena has any papers, take them quietly." William nodded. William came back to Elena. William used a professional tone and said, "Elena, the guests of Royal Crown are feeling uncomfortable. Elena can be given a corner table near the kitchen, or the meal can be packed for Elena to take home." Elena looked at William in shock. What did Elena do? William gave Elena a cold smile. "Elena is creating a disturbance." Elena controlled Elena's voice and said, Sophia is creating the disturbance. Zoe is recording. Elena is only claiming Elena's reservation. Sophia clapped. Listen to that confidence. Elena thinks a booking can buy class. Zoe zoomed in with the phone. Say that again, Sophia. People will love this. Elena did not try to push the phone down. Elena knew if Elena reacted, Zoe would become the victim. Elena looked at William. Please make the video stop. William said, Zoe is a private guest. Elena needs to calm down. Sophia placed one hand on William's shoulder. William, should Sophia call David? Sophia cannot eat in this kind of atmosphere. Looking at a body like that ruins the appetite. Those words cut through Elena's heart like a knife. Elena looked down at the floor. Elena remembered Florence's voice. Elena, never make another person's filth your identity. Elena stood straight and said, Sophia, Elena's body is not Sophia's problem. Sophia's character is Sophia's problem. The dining room went silent for 1 second. Sophia's face hardened. Sophia did not like being answered. Sophia took the phone from Zoe and came very close to Elena. Character? Elena wants to talk about character? Elena used to take sympathy in college too. Now Elena is using the dead mother card here too. Elena's face went pale. Sophia had said Florence's name with so much respect that Elena almost lost control. Elena only said, say Florence's name with respect. Jackson's panic increased. Jackson quickly came forward. William, enough. Escort the guest out. Elena recognized Jackson. Jackson's picture was in Florence's old album. Florence had once called Jackson a partner, not a boss. Elena said to Jackson, Jackson, Florence worked for Royal Crown. Elena just wants to sit at Florence's table. Jackson cut Elena off. Florence's part in this place ended a long time ago. Elena asked in shock. Florence's part ended? The signature dishes of Royal Crown are Florence's recipes. Jackson gave a forced laugh. Elena has been given the wrong information. Elena took a small brown diary from the bag. Florence's name was written on the cover of the diary. Fear flashed in Jackson's eyes. William saw the diary. Sophia mocked the diary. Oh, great. Elena brought a prop too. Sad fat girl with a dead mother diary. Zoe, record this. Zoe brought the camera closer. William reached for the diary. Elena pressed the diary to Elena's chest. William will not touch this diary. William said in a stern tone, Elena is bringing sensitive material into restaurant property. Security needs to check it. Elena said, Florence's diary is not restaurant property. Jackson clenched his teeth. Elena, give the diary to Jackson. Jackson will verify it. Elena took one step back. Sophia looked at the crowd and said loudly, see, Elena only wants attention. Elena thinks because the size is big, the drama should be big too. The line echoed through the glass walls of the dining room and came back into Elena's ears. Elena's throat tightened. The candle on table 12 was still waiting to be lit. Elena felt like Florence was watching from somewhere. Elena felt that if Elena ran away now, Florence's memory would also lose. At that moment, Mafia Boss stood behind the tinted glass of the upper private balcony. Mafia Boss had not come to Royal Crown for a date. Mafia Boss had come to sign the final papers to buy Royal Crown. Jackson had taken a $14 million loan from Mafia Boss's investment company. Jackson had placed the Royal Crown building, kitchen rights, and brand as collateral against the loan. Jackson had not returned the loan. Jackson had created fake accounts. Michael had proved in a 3-week audit that Jackson had siphoned investor money. Tonight, Mafia Boss was supposed to sign the takeover. Mafia Boss was sitting in a private room with Michael for a silent meeting, but Mafia Boss's eyes had stopped on the dining floor below. Mafia Boss had seen Elena standing alone at the entrance. Mafia Boss had seen lonely dignity on Elena's face, the kind of dignity found only in people who break every day and still learn to stand straight. Mafia Boss had seen Sophia's laugh. Mafia Boss had seen Zoe's phone. Mafia Boss had seen William's fake authority. Mafia Boss had seen Jackson's panic when Florence's name was spoken. Something dark moved inside Mafia Boss. Mafia Boss had a past filled with public insults too. Mafia Boss had spent childhood hungry on the back streets of Chicago. Mafia Boss used to get leftovers from the back door of rich restaurants. Staff often chased Mafia Boss away like a dog. But there had been one woman who never chased Mafia Boss away. That woman's name was Florence. Florence had once given soup to the young Mafia Boss at the kitchen's back door. Florence had said, son, when power comes, do not use power to crush the weak. Use power to lift the weak. Mafia Boss had never forgotten Florence's face. Mafia Boss heard Florence's name today after many years. Mafia Boss still did not know Elena was Florence's daughter. But for Mafia Boss, it was enough that a woman was being crushed in public while the whole room enjoyed it. Michael closed the files and asked, Mafia Boss, the transfer papers are ready. Mafia Boss kept looking down at Elena's diary. Mafia Boss said slowly, the papers can wait. The filth downstairs is more important. Michael looked down through the glass. Michael saw Sophia cornering Elena in front of the camera. Michael understood. Mafia Boss buttoned the jacket. The private room door opened. First 2 bodyguards came out. Then Mafia Boss walked down the staircase. The music inside Royal Crown slowed as if the air itself had stopped. Waiters moved aside. Guests stopped whispering. Sophia first looked annoyed. Then Sophia recognized Mafia Boss and and turned pale. In Chicago's rich circles, Mafia Boss's name was not a joke. People called Mafia Boss a businessman when cameras were on. People called Mafia Boss the Shadow King when doors were closed. Jackson saw Mafia Boss coming down and quickly forced a smile. Mafia, this is a small issue. Jackson is handling it. Mafia Boss ignored Jackson. Mafia Boss stopped directly beside Elena. Elena had the diary in Elena's hands. Elena's tears were trapped in Elena's eyes. Mafia Boss looked at William. What is the problem? William's voice got stuck. Sir, the guest is creating a disturbance. Mafia Boss repeated in a slow tone. The guest is creating a disturbance? William gathered courage. Yes, Mafia Boss. VIP guests are uncomfortable. Mafia Boss looked at Sophia. Sophia gave a forced smile. Mafia Boss, Sophia only wants a peaceful dinner. Elena's behavior is embarrassing. Zoe tried to lower the phone, but Mafia Boss looked at the phone. Keep the camera on, Zoe. Zoe froze. Mafia Boss said in a cold voice. Keep the camera on. The whole city should see the truth. A small gasp moved through the dining room. Sophia's confidence shook a little. Mafia Boss asked Elena, what did Elena do? Elena did not answer at first. Elena feared Elena's voice would break. Then Elena held the diary tightly and said Elena had a reservation. Elena wanted to have dinner at table 12 on Florence's death anniversary. Sophia mocked Elena's weight. Zoe was recording. William was trying to remove Elena. Mafia Boss looked toward table 12. The table was empty. The candle was unlit. The Platia Boss asked William, why is the table empty if the restaurant is full? William became silent. Jackson stepped in and said, Mafia Boss, the Florence issue is an old legal confusion. Jackson will explain later. Mafia Boss slowly turned toward Jackson and said, Florence's name sounds strange coming out of Jackson's mouth. Jackson's face tightened. Mafia Boss signaled Michael. Michael came forward with a black folder. Mafia Boss said to William, seat Elena at table 12. William said in a hesitant tone, Sir, Sophia Boss's eyes became cold. William, seat Elena at table 12. William pulled the chair. Elena looked at the chair. Elena's legs would not move. Mafia Boss kept a respectful distance and said, Elena, Florence's candle should be lit. Elena looked at Mafia Boss. Elena could not understand how Mafia Boss was saying Florence's name with so much respect. Elena sat at table 12. Elena took a small candle from Elena's bag. William placed a lighter on the table. Elena's hands were shaking. Mafia Boss picked up the lighter and brought the flame close to the candle but offered the flame to Elena. Elena should light it herself. Elena took the flame and lit the candle. The dining room was absolutely silent. One body-shamed woman, one dangerous Mafia Boss, one stolen name, one burning candle. For Sophia, this was an insult. For Zoe, this was footage. For Jackson, this was a threat. For Elena, this was the first breath of justice for Florence. When the candle lit, Sophia scraped the chair back. This is ridiculous. Sophia did not come here to watch drama. Mafia Boss said without raising the voice. Sophia's dinner was ruined. Now Sophia's dinner is over. Sophia asked in shock. Excuse me. Mafia Boss looked at Michael. Cancel Sophia's table. Zoe's phone is evidence. William is suspended. Jackson should be ready in the private office. William's face went white. Sophia used the name of Sophia's father. David is an investor in Royal Crown. David will not tolerate this. Mafia Boss asked Michael, David's investment percentage. Michael looked at the folder and said, 12%. Already diluted because of Jackson's default. No control rights. Mafia Boss looked at Sophia. David's money does not make Sophia bigger than humanity. Sophia started shaking with anger. Elena insulted Sophia. Mafia Boss pointed toward Zoe's phone. Everything is on Zoe's camera. Zoe tried to hide the phone. Michael held out his hand. Zoe tried to talk about privacy, but one bodyguard stepped forward. Zoe gave the phone to Michael. Michael saved the video. Mafia Boss said to Zoe, Zoe makes public humiliation content. Now Zoe will make public apology content. Zoe's lips trembled. Sophia said loudly, Sophia will not apologize. Mafia Boss said with a calm expression, Sophia does not need to apologize. Sophia is getting a lifetime ban from Royal Crown. The guests looked at each other in shock. Sophia's face turned red. Sophia looked at Jackson. Jackson, do something. Jackson gave a weak smile. Jackson could not do anything in front of Mafia Boss. Jackson's loans were with Mafia Boss. Jackson's fake ledgers were inside Michael's folder. Jackson's empire could burn like paper. Mafia Boss looked at Elena. Start Elena's dinner. Waiters began to move in panic. A young waitress named Ruby came or crown. Ruby quietly placed water beside Elena. Ruby said softly, Elena, Ruby is sorry. Ruby tried to stop the video, but William warned Ruby. Elena saw honesty in Ruby's eyes. Nod. Ruby placed a small flower beside Florence's candle. Elena's tears finally fell. Mafia Boss saw Ruby's gesture. Mafia Boss said, Ruby, from today, table 12 is not only for special guests. Table 12 will be for people who need respect. Ruby gave a small smile. Sophia became more jealous while watching all this. Sophia grabbed Zoe's hand and walked toward the exit. But Michael stood near the exit. Michael said in a calm tone, public apology first. Sophia hissed, never. Mafia Boss picked up a phone from the table and dialed a number. David. The speaker was on. David's voice came through. Mafia Boss, is the deal signed? Mafia Boss said before the deal, David's daughter body-shamed a paying customer inside Royal Crown. Zoe recorded the customer. William tried to remove the victim. David's name was used as a threat. Silence came from the other side of the line. David understood business. David feared scandal. David immediately said, Sophia will apologize. Sophia's face froze. Dad. David's voice became hard. Sophia, apologize. Now, in the middle of the dining room, Sophia had to stand without power for the first time. Sophia looked at Elena. Sophia's voice had poison in it, but fear too. Elena, Sophia is sorry. Mafia Boss said, specific. Sophia said through clenched teeth. Sophia is sorry that Sophia mocked Elena's weight. Sophia was wrong. Mafia Boss looked at Zoe. Zoe had not gotten the phone back. Zoe said in a trembling voice, sorry that Zoe recorded Elena. Zoe will delete the video. Mafia Boss said to Michael, do not delete the video. Secure the evidence. Zoe closed her eyes. Mafia Boss signaled the bodyguard. Sophia and Zoe were escorted out of Royal Crown. This time there was no dragging, no loud drama. Mafia Boss did not turn revenge into a circus. Mafia Boss used power with a clean cut. The guests in the dining room picked up their forks again, but the atmosphere had changed. Everyone now understood that nobody's dignity was cheap entertainment inside Royal Crown. Elena sat at table 12. The menu was in front of Elena. Elena's hands were still shaking a little. Mafia Boss looked at the chair opposite Elena. May Mafia Boss sit? Elena nodded in shock. Mafia Boss kept distance. Mafia Boss's voice was soft now, but the authority was still there. Elena spoke Florence's name. Was Florence Elena's mother? Elena looked at the candle. Yes. Florence was a chef at Royal Crown. After Florence died, Royal Crown removed Florence's name. Elena never got an explanation. A memory flashed in Mafia Boss's eyes. Florence once gave soup to a hungry boy at the back door of the kitchen. The boy had no name, no home, no respect. Florence told the boy that when power came, the boy should lift the weak. Mafia Boss never forgot Florence. Elena looked at Mafia Boss in surprise. You knew Florence? Mafia Boss said Mafia Boss owed Florence one meal. Maybe today is the time to repay that debt. A strange warmth moved through Elena's heart. But Elena was afraid to trust. Elena asked directly, why is Mafia Boss at Royal Crown? Mafia Boss did not lie. Jackson took a loan from Mafia Boss's company. Jackson committed fraud. Royal Crown is under takeover tonight. Elena's face became tense. So Mafia Boss came to buy the restaurant. Mafia Boss said yes. But Mafia Boss did not know Elena before tonight. Mafia Boss came down after seeing Elena being insulted. Mafia Boss stayed after hearing Florence's name. Elena placed a hand on the diary. Why is Jackson afraid of Florence? Mafia Boss looked toward Jackson. Jackson stood near the private office and was making a panicked phone call. That question matters. Elena opened the diary. Inside the diary were Florence's handwritten recipes, dates, and a few initials. Elena turned one page. At the bottom of the page, Florence had written, Jackson changed the contract. William hid the files. If Elena ever reads this, the truth is under table 12. Elena stopped breathing. Mafia Boss looked at the page. Michael came closer and observed the note. Elena whispered, the truth is under table 12? Mafia Boss looked at the edge of the table. Table 12 was an old mahogany table. Royal Crown had renovated the furniture, but table 12 was original. Florence's favorite table. Mafia Boss said to Ruby, do not close the dining room, but move the nearby guests away from table 12. Ruby quickly moved the nearby guests with polite requests. William watched from the door. Sweat covered William's forehead. Jackson rushed out of the office. Mafia Boss, the table is antique. The damage will be expensive. Mafia Boss looked at Jackson. Jackson should have cared about the table when Jackson erased Florence's name. Jackson said nervously, Florence was unstable. Florence used to write anything in that diary. Elena stood from the chair and said Florence was not unstable. Jackson showed fake sadness. Elena was a child. Elena does not know reality. Mafia Boss said in a cold tone, if reality is under the table, reality will come out now. Michael asked for a discreet tool. A bodyguard brought a small flashlight and screwdriver. There was a wooden panel under table 12. The panel was covered with paint. Michael carefully opened the panel. Elena's heartbeat became loud. Inside the panel was a plastic sealed envelope. The envelope had Florence's handwriting on it. For Elena, only if Royal Crown tries to erase me. Elena almost dropped the diary. Mafia Boss gave the envelope to Elena. Elena's right. Elena held the envelope, but Elena was afraid to open it. Florence had been dead for 6 years. Doctors had said heart failure. Jackson had sent flowers to the funeral. Royal Crown had given no public tribute. Elena had not asked questions because of grief. Now the hidden envelope under the table was telling Elena that something had been buried. Elena opened the envelope. Inside was an original contract copy. The contract listed Florence as co-creator and owner of the recipe rights. Jackson's signature was on the contract. David's witness signature was on the contract. There was a photo where Florence stood at table 12 and signed the contract with Jackson. There was a small USB drive, and there was a note. Elena opened the note. Florence's handwriting broke Elena's heart. Elena, if this note reaches Elena, it means Jackson buried the truth. The signature recipes of Royal Crown belong to Florence. Jackson is denying the profit share. Florence has decided to file a legal complaint. If anything happens to Florence, do not accept natural death. Florence fears Jackson can do anything to save the business. Elena's face went numb. The candle flame moved. Mafia Boss read the note fully. A cold darkness entered Mafia Boss's eyes. The kind people saw only when Mafia Boss had decided not to forgive someone. Jackson saw the note and gave a desperate laugh. Old nonsense. Florence was dramatic. The USB is fake. Michael asked for a laptop. Mafia Boss, Michael can check the USB. Jackson immediately said, no restaurant data privacy. Mafia Boss took one step closer to Jackson. Jackson wants to talk about privacy. Jackson stole Florence's name. Jackson tried to take Elena on fraud. Jackson should choose silence now. Jackson became quiet. Michael inserted the USB into the laptop. Folders opened on the screen. Folder names appeared. Contracts, voice notes, kitchen camera, medical report. Elena's body turned cold. Michael played one voice note. Florence's voice echoed inside the room. Jackson, the recipes will not go on the menu without credit to Florence. Jackson's recorded voice came through. Florence, Royal Crown investors do not want the story of a single mother chef. Investors want a brand. Florence's voice was strong. The brand is built on Florence's work. Jackson's voice became dark. Florence, sign it or Elena's school scholarship can also be at risk. Tears rolled down Elena's face. Florence had suffered everything for Elena. Michael opened another file. The medical report mentioned traces of a rare sedative in Florence's blood sample, but the detail was missing from the final death certificate. Mafia Boss looked at Michael. Michael understood. The report was tampered with. Elena gripped the chair. Was Florence poisoned? Mafia Boss said calmly. No conclusion yet, but the natural death story looks weak. Jackson shouted, enough! This is illegal evidence. Mafia Boss said, Jackson suddenly remembers the law. At that moment, the main doors of Royal Crown opened. A tall man walked in. James. James had never been engaged to Elena, but James was the chapter in Elena's life where Elena lost trust. James had left Elena when Florence was in the hospital. James had said, Elena has become heavy with grief and weight. Jana had not seen James in years. James now wore a formal suit. James held a legal envelope in one hand. Jackson looked relieved after seeing James. James, finally. Elena asked in confusion, why is James here? James did not meet Elena's eyes. James looked at Mafia Boss and tried to keep the voice steady. James is the legal counsel for Royal Crown. The Florence matter was already settled. The papers Elena has may be legally invalid. Elena's heart started breaking again. James was on Jackson's side. Mafia Boss know Elena before. James paused. Yes, Mafia Boss asked. Why did James not warn Elena that Royal Crown was hiding Florence's name? James remained silent. Elena closed the diary. Elena's voice was strong for the first time. James, did James know? James lowered the eyes. James found some documents. Jackson said the matter was resolved. Elena gave a bitter smile, and James believed Jackson, just like James believed Elena's pain was drama. James said softly, Elena, James is sorry. Elena cut James off. Sorry. Truth now. Mafia Boss said to Michael James's envelope. James wanted to resist, but James looked into Mafia Boss's eyes and placed the envelope on the table. Inside the envelope was a cease and desist notice. Jackson had already planned to send a legal threat if Elena raised Florence's name. The notice was dated today. That meant Jackson knew Elena would come. Elena looked at Jackson in shock. How did Jackson know Elena would come to Royal Crown tonight? William tried to move from the side. Ruby quietly said. William sent a screenshot of the booking system to Jackson. William froze. Mafia Boss looked at William. William had no answer. Michael demanded William's phone. William handed over the phone. The messages were clear. Florence reservation active. Girl may have diary. Handle before dinner rush. The sender was Jackson. Elena's stomach twisted. That meant the humiliation was not fully random. Jackson wanted Elena removed. Sophia and Zoe's insult was chance, but William and Jackson's pressure was planned. Mafia Boss arranged the documents on the table. Florence contract, USB medical report, Jackson messages, loan default papers. Mafia Boss said to Jackson, Jackson made two mistakes tonight. First, Jackson thought Elena was weak. Second, Jackson thought Mafia Boss was blind. Jackson's breathing became heavy. Jackson played the last card. Mafia Boss came for business. If Mafia Boss gets involved in personal drama, Mafia Boss's deal would withdraw. Investors will sue. Mafia Boss gave a faint smile. The deal is not at risk. The deal is already over. Michael opened the final takeover folder. Jackson's default clause has been triggered. Ownership transfer is ready. Jackson said if Mafia Boss signs, Royal Crown will belong to Mafia Boss, not Elena. Mafia Boss picked up the pen. Elena thought Mafia Boss would put the restaurant under Mafia Boss's own name. All the guests in the dining room were still quietly watching. Sophia was outside. Zoe's phone was evidence. David was silent on the phone. James stood in guilt. Ruby stood near the candle. William was sweating. Jackson was cornered. Mafia Boss signed the first document. Control of Royal Crown moved to Mafia Boss. Jackson's face a clap. Boss took out a second document. Elena saw Elena's name on the page. Elena Florence Estate Trust. Elena's voice almost disappeared. What is this? Mafia Boss placed the pen near Elena. The operational ownership of Royal Crown will be transferred to Elena Florence Estate Trust. Mafia Boss will not be the legal guardian of the transfer. Mafia Boss will be the financier. Florence owns the recipe rights. Elena owns the soul of Royal Crown. Elena stepped back in shock. Elena cannot even run a restaurant. Elena has no business experience. Mafia Boss said calmly, Elena does not need to become an owner today. Elena needs to take back what belongs to Elena today. A business team will manage it. Ruby will lead staff training. Michael will handle the legal cleanup. Elena will decide how Royal Crown carries Florence's name with respect. James said quietly, this is impossible. Mafia Boss looked at James. Impossible happens when there is not enough money. Mafia Boss has money, proof, and a reason. Fear and hope fought inside Elena's heart. Elena looked at Florence's candle. The flame was steady. Elena picked up the pen. Elena's hand was shaking. Mafia Boss did not touch Elena. Mafia Boss only said, Elena will not sign under anyone's favor. Elena will sign for Florence's right. Elena signed the paper. In that second, the power inside Royal Crown changed. Jackson went from owner to accused fraudster. William went from manager to suspended witness. Sophia went from elite guest to banned bully. Zoe went from content creator to evidence holder. James went from ex to conflicted lawyer. Elena went from victim to legal heir. Mafia Boss went from silent protector to a storm of justice. But the most dangerous moment of part one was still waiting. Michael opened the final folder on the USB. The folder name was Night Florence Died. Elena held Elena's breath. The video file played. The screen showed the old kitchen of Royal Crown. The date was 6 years old. Florence was inside the kitchen late at night. Jackson came out of the office. William wore a young assistant uniform. David also entered the room. Florence placed a document on the table. Florence said, tomorrow Elena will know the truth. Jackson picked up a glass. David locked the door. William looked toward the camera, and the camera angle suddenly went black. The video was not complete, but the audio kept playing. Florence's voice said, Jackson, what is in the glass? Then a chair fell. Then Jackson's voice said, the report will say natural. Elena will never know. Elena's world froze. The candle flame almost went out for 1 second. Jackson tried to run. Bodyguards stopped Jackson at the door. James covered the face. William fell to the knees. Michael did not open a police contact. Michael opened a private investigator contact because Mafia Boss knew the official system could have David's people inside it. Mafia Boss looked at Elena. Elena's eyes no longer held only tears. Elena's eyes held Florence's unfinished justice. Mafia Boss said quietly, Elena, Royal Crown became Elena's tonight, but Florence killer cannot stay free. Elena closed at Jackson. Elena's voice was low, but for the first time, Elena's voice did not break at all. Jackson took Elena's dinner. Jackson took Florence's name. Maybe Jackson took Florence's life too. Now Elena will not run. Mafia Boss said to Michael, lock the doors, secure the cameras, preserve every guest statement. Do not let David leave the city. Michael nodded. The bright chandeliers inside Royal Crown were still shining, but the luxury mask of the restaurant had been broken. Florence's candle was burning on table 12. Elena stood beside table 12. Mafia Boss stood with Elena. Jackson was trapped between bodyguards. And on the screen, the black video from Florence's last night was paused. This night had started with body shaming. This night had reached ownership. Now this night stood at the door of a murder confession. As soon as the doors inside Royal Crown were locked, the bright luxury dining room started to feel like a courtroom. Elena stood beside table 12. Florence's candle was still burning. The black video was paused on the screen. Jackson was trapped between the bodyguards. William was on the floor with trembling knees. James stood to one side under the heavy weight of guilt. Mafia Boss gave Michael one signal, and Michael understood that a normal business takeover had now become a murder investigation. Michael secured the restaurant's current cameras. Michael temporarily collected the phones of the staff. Michael politely told every guest that no guest was being held by force, but leaving before statements were recorded could be dangerous because this case might be linked to an old death. The rich guests who had stayed silent during Elena's humiliation were now sitting perfectly straight in fear. Elena looked at Jackson. Elena's heart did not hold only anger. Elena's heart held 6 years of emptiness, the kind of emptiness that had followed Elena through every birthday, every dinner, and every quiet kitchen without Florence. Elena said slowly, "What did Jackson do to Florence?" Jackson tried to laugh. "Elena is emotional. The video is incomplete. The audio could be manipulated." Mafia Boss stepped closer to Jackson and spoke in a calm voice. Jackson still thinks Jackson can control the story. Jackson Glare Boss is a businessman. Mafia Boss should not get involved in a murder case. Mafia Boss said Mafia Boss stays out of things until the weak are crushed. Jackson crushed Elena. Jackson erased Florence. Now Mafia Boss is not going anywhere. Michael connected a call to a retired detective. The detective had official police retirement behind the detective, but the detective still had a legal network that reached old evidence rooms, medical labs, and court records. Mafia Boss said only one thing: 6-year-old death. Name Florence. Royal Crown Restaurant. Possible sedative. Possible report tampering. Official system may be compromised. Primary suspect. Mafia Boss looked at Jackson. Jackson. Secondary suspect David. Possible witness William. William lifted William's head after hearing that. William's hands were shaking. William said in a broken voice, "William did not kill Florence." Elena immediately looked at William, but William was there. Tears came out of William's eyes. William was only an assistant then. William was 23. William needed the job. Jackson told William to turn the camera. William turned the camera. William thought it was only a business argument. William did not give the glass. William saw Florence fall to the floor. William tried to call an ambulance. Jackson took the phone. David said if William opened William's mouth, David would put a theft case on William. William got scared. Elena broke inside again. William stayed silent for 6 years and left Elena alone. William lowered William's head. Yes. William was a coward. Jackson shouted, "Shut up, William." Mafia Boss gave the bodyguard a signal. The bodyguard pushed Jackson into a chair. Mafia Boss said to William, "William will tell the truth now. Every word will be recorded." Michael placed the phone on record. William began giving the statement of that entire night. William said Florence had prepared a legal notice for profit share and recipe rights. Florence was going to file the case the next morning. Jackson had called David because David was an investor, and David did not want the Royal Crown brand dragged into scandal. David pressured Jackson to silence Florence. William said Jackson prepared the drink. David locked the door. Florence noticed a strange smell in the drink. Florence placed the glass on the table, but Jackson forced Florence to drink water by saying Florence was stressed. William turned the camera angle away, but the old audio system did not turn off the camera microphone. That was why the USB saved audio even though the video became black. After Florence fell, Jackson called a private doctor. The doctor marked the death as a heart issue. David had the sedative trace removed from the medical report. William had not helped Florence hide the backup copy under the table, but William had seen that Florence had already hidden something inside the panel. Elena closed Elena's eyes. Florence knew danger could come. Florence had hidden proof for Elena. Mafia Boss asked William, "What order did Jackson give after seeing Elena's booking tonight?" William repeated the statement with the phone messages. Jackson said, "Take the diary. Remove Elena. Do not let Florence's name become public." Michael saved the statement. Jackson tried to stand from the chair. "William is a liar. William is saying nonsense to save William's job." Mafia Boss said, "William has already lost the job. Now William is trying to save William's soul." Ruby stood near table 12 and heard everything. Ruby said softly, "Ruby will also give a statement." Elena looked at Ruby. Ruby said Ruby saw old menu samples in the storage room last month. Florence's name was on the recipe drafts. Jackson told Ruby to throw the old papers in the trash. Ruby did not throw away some of the papers. Ruby hid the papers behind the staff locker. Jackson's eyes widened. Mafia Boss said to Ruby, "Bring them." Ruby ran into the staff corridor. Ruby came back with a brown file. Inside the file were old menu mock-ups. Under every signature dish, the words were written clearly. "Created by Florence." In the later version, Florence's name had been crossed out. Michael scanned the file. Elena touched the paper as if Elena was touching Florence's hand. Elena whispered, "Florence built Royal Crown." Mafia Boss said, "And Jackson stole Royal Crown." James finally stepped forward. Guilt was clear on James's face. "Elena, James has something too." Elena looked at James coldly. "Why did James hide it until now?" James took a deep breath. James hid it because James was. Jackson gave James a legal internship. James wanted a career. After Florence died, James saw an old settlement draft. James felt suspicious. James wanted to tell Elena, but Jackson said Elena was already unstable with grief. Jackson offered James a promotion. James chose silence. James lost Elena, and James still did not tell the truth. Pain crossed Elena's face. James did not leave Elena only because of Elena's weight. James left Elena because James could not face the truth. Tears filled James's eyes. Yes, James opened an envelope. The inside was an old Jackson to James. Florence file closed. If Elena asks, discourage emotional claims. Mention mental stress. Elena's hand became cold. Jackson had not only hidden Florence's name, Jackson had also planned to destroy Elena's credibility. Mafia Boss asked James, will James testify in court? James answered immediately, yes. James will say everything under oath. Elena looked at James, but Elena did not forgive James. Elena only said truth first. Forgiveness may never come later, but James will still tell the truth. James nodded. At that moment, Michael reported that David's phone had been turned off. David's driver had already left the hotel. Mafia Boss gave a bodyguard a signal. Do not let David reach the airport. Elena looked at Mafia Boss. Why is Mafia Boss not calling the police? Mafia Boss gave a direct answer. The police will be called, but David has connections inside the police. If raw evidence reaches the wrong hands, the USB can disappear. The retired detective will make legal duplicates first. One copy to an attorney, one copy to a federal contact, one copy to a court clerk. Then the police will be called. This is how powerful men are trapped without giving powerful men time to clean the room. Elena understood. This was not simple revenge. This was strategy. Mafia Boss was angry, but Mafia Boss was not careless. The retired detective arrived at the back entrance of Royal Crown 40 minutes later. The retired detective came with an independent forensic technician. The technician made an image copy of the USB. The technician recorded the hash of the laptop. The technician sealed the original envelope, contract, note, old menu drafts, William's phone messages, Zoe's video and James's emails inside evidence bags. The retired detective took Elena's statement. Elena explained how Elena came for the reservation, how Sophia mocked Elena, how Zoe recorded Elena, how William tried to remove Elena, and how Florence's diary led Elena to the clue under table 12. The retired detective wrote every detail down. The retired detective took Mafia Boss to the side and said, the case is strong, but without the sedative report, a murder charge will be difficult. If the original lab sample was preserved, that would be the breakthrough. Mafia Boss looked at Michael. Michael said old hospital storage records must be checked. James said exhumation of Florence's body may be possible, but a court order will be needed. Elena's face filled with pain. Disturbing Florence's grave was not easy for Elena. Mafia Boss stood near Elena with respectful distance and said, Elena has to decide. The path to justice can be painful. Elena looked at the candle. Florence hid proof for Elena. Elena will bring out the truth for Florence. The retired detective nodded. Then an emergency petition will be filed before a judge. But David's influence is a problem. Mafia Boss gave a cold smile. David's influence will become smaller tonight. A message came to Michael's phone. David had been stopped at the private jet terminal. Mafia Boss's men did not use illegal violence. Mafia Boss's men sent the charter company an outstanding lien and federal tax flag notice that Michael had already found during the audit. The jet was legally grounded. David was stuck in the VIP lounge of the terminal. David still thought phone calls would fix everything, but Sophia's public apology video clip had already leaked. Zoe had not deleted the video, and Michael had preserved the cloud backup. Zoe's live snippet spread online. City blogs started posting headlines. Royal Crown investor's daughter body shames woman before takeover scandal. David's reputation began to crack. Mafia Boss had not deliberately leaked the video. Zoe had released the monster of content herself. Now that same monster was eating Zoe and Sophia too. Elena did not want viral fame. Viral outrage made it impossible for David to hide. At 3 in the morning, Royal Crown was finally empty. The staff was sent home. Ruby wanted to stay. Elena thanked Ruby. Ruby said, Ruby will come back tomorrow for Florence's name. Mafia Boss appointed Ruby as temporary staff coordinator. William was sent with the retired detective under protective witness status. James signed a legal cooperation notice. Jackson was kept in private security custody until the official police handover because Jackson was a flight risk. Before morning, the retired detective delivered proper evidence packets to the police unit and the federal financial crimes contact. When the official police arrived at Royal Crown, the evidence was already locked in multiple legal channels. Jackson was detained for fraud, obstruction, and suspected homicide conspiracy. Jackson kept shouting that Mafia Boss had framed Jackson, but Jackson's own messages, Florence's audio, William's statement, Ruby's papers, James's emails, and the financial fraud records were all standing against Jackson. The real fight of Part 2 was now going to begin in court and in the media. The next day, Royal Crown was everywhere in the Chicago news. Sophia was locked inside the house. Zoe's followers first shared Zoe's video, then started canceling Zoe. Zoe posted an apology, but people asked if the apology was for Elena or for lost sponsorships. Sophia blamed David. David blamed the lawyers. Jackson blamed William. Every guilty person blamed someone else. Only Elena blamed no one. Elena went to Florence's grave. Elena did not wear the dark blue dress. Mafia Boss stood at a distance. Mafia Boss gave Elena time alone. Elena placed fresh white flowers on the grave. Elena said, "Florence, Elena is late." But Elena will not stop now. The air was cold. Tears were in Elena's eyes, but Elena's shoulders were straight. When Elena walked back toward the car, Mafia Boss opened the door. Elena said, "Mafia Boss has done too much for Elena. Elena does not want to stay in anyone's debt." Mafia Boss said quietly, "Elena is not in debt. Mafia Boss was in debt. Florence once treated a hungry boy like a human being." Mafia Boss only returned the same respect to Florence's daughter. For the first time, Elena did not see Mafia Boss only as a dangerous man. Elena saw a man who carried darkness inside, but at the center of that darkness, a memory of Florence's bowl of soup was still burning. Elena asked in a soft voice, "Does Mafia Boss always help like this?" Mafia Boss gave an almost bitter smile. "No, Mafia Boss is often late. Today, Mafia Boss did not want to be late." Days passed. The court petition was approved. Florence's old medical records were reopened. A preserved toxicology slide was found in lab storage. The slide confirmed traces of a rare sedative. The sedative was normally used in high-end private clinics. The retired detective traced the supply chain. The sedative vial had been ordered by David's private doctor. The doctor denied everything at first. Then Michael's financial audit exposed the doctor's offshore payment. The doctor gave testimony in exchange for a deal. The doctor confessed that David had pressured the doctor to alter the report. The doctor said Jackson arranged the drug. David funded the cover-up. William was silenced, and James was kept confused on the legal side. James was not directly involved in the murder, but James had helped suppress the truth. James admitted that in court. Elena sat in the back row when James said under oath. James chose career. James ignored Elena's pain. James indirectly helped dismiss Florence's case. James feels guilty, but guilt is not a replacement for justice. Elena looked at James. Elena's heart was heavy. Elena wanted to hate James, but Elena understood James was weak, not a monster. Jackson was a monster. David was a monster. William was a coward. Zoe was cruel. Sophia was entitled. James was broken. Every person had a different role. Every consequence also had to be different. After the court hearing, James came to Elena. James said, "Elena, James does not deserve forgiveness." Elena answered directly, "James is right. James will not demand forgiveness. James will keep telling the truth. That is all." James lowered James's head. This was Elena's growth moment. Elena was no longer chasing approval, apology, or old love. Elena was walking straight with Florence's truth. Royal Crown was temporarily closed. Mafia Boss hired the best team for renovation, but Elena gave one condition. Luxury will stay, but arrogance will not. Royal Crown's door will be open for every respectful guest. In staff training, the dignity rule will come first. Any comment about a guest's body, clothes, accent, money, background, or grief will have zero tolerance. Mafia Boss approved it without argument. Michael drafted the policy. Ruby led the staff meetings. Ruby said, "Service does not mean smiling only at the rich. Service means giving every human being respect at the table." The old arrogant staff resigned. New staff were hired. William cooperated fully to avoid prison, but William received a settlement that pushed William out of the hospitality industry. William received community service and witness program conditions. Elena did not personally punish William. Elena said, "The law will decide William's punishment." Elena's work was to tell the truth. Sophia's social circle collapsed. David's investors withdrew. Sophia first tried to gain sympathy in the media. Sophia said Sophia was young and stressed, but Zoe's raw video showed Sophia's cruelty clearly. Sponsors dropped Sophia. Sophia finally entered a court-mandated anti-bullying program. Zoe faced digital harassment charges because Zoe had recorded Elena without consent. Zoe gave a public apology, but Elena refused a private meeting with Zoe. Elena gave one statement. Elena's pain was not content. Nobody else's pain should be content either. That line went viral. People stopped calling Elena a victim and started calling Elena a voice. But Elena rejected interviews until Florence's first indictment was complete. Mafia Boss went with Elena to every court date, but Mafia Boss always stood behind Elena in front of the cameras, never in front of Elena. Reporters, Mafia Boss gave only one line. "This is Florence's story and Elena's fight." Elena felt that respect. Mafia Boss protected Elena, but Mafia Boss did not steal Elena's voice. That mattered most to Elena. Powerful men often use help as a way to control. Mafia Boss did not control Elena. Mafia Boss created space for Elena. One evening, Elena sat alone at table 12 inside the empty dining room of Royal Crown. Renovation was half complete. The chandeliers had been cleaned. The walls had a new color. The old elitist paintings were being replaced with framed kitchen memories. A large frame in the center was going to hold Florence's photo. Elena was choosing the photo. Mafia Boss stopped at the door. "Is Mafia Boss disturbing Elena?" Elena gave a small smile. No, Elena is just deciding how to remember Florence. Mafia Boss placed an old paper on the table. Mafia Boss has something. Elena looked at the paper. The paper was an old soup kitchen receipt. The date was many years old. On the back, Florence's handwriting said, "For the boy at the back door, extra soup." Tears filled Elena's eyes. Mafia Boss saved this? Mafia Boss said Mafia Boss had nothing in childhood. This paper was proof that someone had seen Mafia Boss as a human, not a dog. Elena's heart softened. Elena saw Mafia Boss's scarred knuckles, tired eyes, and loneliness for the first time. Elena said slowly, "Florence gave Mafia Boss soup. Mafia Boss gave Elena a restaurant. Maybe Florence sent both of us to each other." Mafia Boss said nothing. The silence was comfortable. Then Mafia Boss said, "Elena must review the final ownership documents for Royal Crown. Mafia Boss will make sure Elena is financially safe, but Elena can hire independent counsel whenever Elena wants." Elena nodded. "Elena will hire independent counsel. Transparency is necessary for trust." A slight smile came to Mafia Boss's lips. "Good. Elena should never sign anything only because Mafia Boss says so." Elena smiled and said, "Florence taught the same thing. That was the real beginning of the relationship. No dramatic confession, no forced romance. Only respect, truth, and slow trust." The court case continued for months. Jackson initially pleaded not guilty. David hired an army of lawyers. David claimed that David was only at an investor meeting on the night Florence died. But the audio, the doctor's testimony, the financial payment trail, the old contract motive, and William's statement weakened David's defense. The biggest blow came when the retired detective found an old ledger inside Royal Crown's old safe. The ledger was found through a clue from Michael's audit. The ledger listed payments to the private doctor, William's hush money, legal suppression costs, and even James's internship bonus. James's bonus was legally suspicious, but James cooperated, so James received a minor obstruction deal. William was charged with obstruction and evidence tampering, but the sentence was reduced because of cooperation. Jackson and David moved forward on charges of conspiracy, fraud, evidence tampering, and second-degree murder. On the final day of trial, Elena went to the witness stand. The courtroom was full. Reporters were outside. Mafia Boss stood in the back row. Elena spoke the truth before the judge. The defense lawyer tried to make Elena look emotional, biased, and attention-seeking. The lawyer indirectly referred to Elena's body and the viral video. Elena enjoyed public sympathy after the restaurant incident, correct? Elena answered directly. Elena did not ask for public sympathy. Elena asked for dinner. Public cruelty made Elena viral. Florence's murder proof made Elena a witness. The courtroom went silent. The lawyer asked, "Elena hated Jackson before that night." Elena said, "Elena did not even properly know Jackson. Jackson gave Elena the reason to search for the truth." The lawyer asked, "Elena benefits financially if Royal Crown belongs to Elena." Elena said in a calm voice, "Elena benefits only if Florence's right truly belonged to Florence." The contract proved it. David's witness signature proved it. The defense lawyer became silent. In Elena's final statement, Elena said, "Florence was a chef. Florence was not a brand tool. Florence was a mother. Florence was a creator. Florence gave taste to a restaurant." Jackson and David erased Florence's name. Then Jackson and David hid Florence's death inside paperwork. Elena is not standing here for revenge. Elena is standing here to correct the record. The jury did not take long to deliberate. Jackson was guilty. David was guilty. A gasp moved through the courtroom. David's arrogant face finally went blank. Elena closed Elena's eyes. Elena repeated Florence's name inside Elena's heart. Mafia Boss watched from the back. Mafia Boss did not clap. Mafia Boss did not celebrate. Mafia Boss understood that justice does not completely heal grief. Justice only gives the wound a name. A few weeks later, Royal Crown reopened. But Royal Crown was no longer the same. At the entrance, gold letters carried the new line, "Royal Crown by Florence." Under it, a small plaque said dignity. Table 12 was not placed in the center of the restaurant. Table 12 was placed in a warm corner where a candle always burned. Not for any rich VIP, not for any celebrity. Every week, Table 12 was reserved for one guest who had ever been made to feel invisible by life. Ruby was now the floor director. Ruby told every new staff member the story of Table 12. Michael handled the back office systems. Independent counsel secured Elena's trust. Mafia Boss remained the financier, not the owner. Elena brought Florence's original recipes back to the menu. Under every dish, Florence's name was printed. On opening night, the media waited outside. Elena wore a dark green velvet dress. Elena did not hide Elena's body. Elena kept Elena's shoulders straight. Sophia was not outside. Sophia was not invited. Sophia looked at Elena from a distance. Shame was on Sophia's face. Zoe stood to one side too. Zoe was not recording with a phone. That was a change too. Elena saw both of them, but Elena kept focus on Florence's frame. Elena's night was not for revenge. Elena's night was for reclaiming. During the opening speech, Elena took the microphone. Elena said, 6 years ago, Florence's name was erased from Royal Crown. Tonight, Florence's name is back in the lights of Royal Crown. Elena has learned that an insult is never the truth. An insult is only a mirror of the person giving it. Every person who has ever been shamed in public, every person who has ever been made to feel small because of body, money, background, grief, or loneliness deserves a seat at Royal Crown. The crowd clapped. Elena looked toward Mafia Boss. Mafia Boss stood at the back, away from the spotlight. Elena said, "Some people use power as a weapon. Some people use power as a shield. Florence once gave soup to a hungry boy. Tonight, that same boy returned with power and helped Florence's daughter reach the truth." Softness entered Mafia Boss's eyes. The crowd did not know the full story, but Elena knew. Dinner began. Florence's signature soup was the first dish. Elena placed a bowl in front of Mafia Boss. "Is Florence's debt complete?" Mafia Boss picked up the spoon, then looked at the bowl. "A debt is never complete when kindness saves a life." Elena gave a small laugh. Mafia Boss looked at Elena. "Is Elena happy?" Elena looked around the dining room. Ruby was guiding the staff. The guests were respectful. The candle burned at table 12. Florence's photo was on the wall. Jackson was in prison. David had lost the empire. William was facing consequences after telling the truth. James was rebuilding with guilt. Sophia and Zoe had been forced to see the mirror of their cruelty. Elena said, "Elena is not healed, but Elena is not hidden either. Maybe this is the start." Mafia Boss nodded slowly. "A start is enough." At the end of the night, Elena walked to the back door of Royal Crown, the same back door where Florence had once given soup to young Mafia Boss. Elena saw a teenage boy standing near the dumpster and looking at leftover bags. A staff member was about to chase the boy away, but Ruby stopped the staff member. Elena went into the kitchen. Elena packed a bowl of Florence's soup. Elena came to the back door. Mafia Boss watched from the doorway. Elena handed the bowl to the boy and said, "Son, when power comes, do not use power to crush the weak. Use power to lift the weak." The boy looked at Elena with confused eyes, then took the bowl. Mafia Boss closed Mafia Boss's eyes. Florence's circle was complete. Elena turned toward Mafia Boss. No words were needed between them. The lights inside Royal Crown were bright. The Chicago night outside was cold. But at the back door, a new story had started with one bowl of soup. Elena's story began with public humiliation. Elena's story could have stopped at body shaming. Elena's story could have ended as one viral video. But Elena turned the insult into a doorway to truth. Mafia Boss bought the restaurant with power, but Elena bought Florence's name back with courage. And as Florence's candle kept burning on table 12, every guest inside Royal Crown understood one thing: somebody else's laughter never decides your value. Sometimes the room where people try hardest to make you feel small becomes the same room that one day shines with your name. Did Elena make the right choice by trusting Mafia Boss? Was it necessary to open the grave of the past for justice? And if you were in Elena's place, would you have run from Royal Crown, or would you have lit the candle at table 12 and brought the truth into the light? Tell us in the comments, and if Elena and Florence's story touched your heart, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe.